you're profoundly deaf, but how is it that you have the timing perfectly? And I said, well, I use my eyes. I can see when the priest does the sign of the cross. At that time, he's also reaching for the blood and the body. And at that moment, that's when I'm ready. At the exact moment he puts his hands up to cover and bless, that's when I do it. Everything's going on at the same time, but I see it. I can't hear it, but I see it all. And that helps me, those visual cues, to make sure everything goes well. So in ASL, we are creating liturgy. And that's why I always tell people, deaf people, it's like, you got to take advantage of this. We are more visual. We capable of understanding it better than hearing population. Here are the goals. I want to make sure that we can incorporate deaf people into their church. We want to invite them. We want to make sure to have something set up so that they feel welcomed and not feel like they're the only one. Some parents, they're embarrassed that they have a son or a daughter who is deaf, and they don't want to show them, so they keep them at home. It's a child with a disability, and deafness would be considered a disability, and so they're like, don't sign, only verbalize.
Welcome back to Dust and Glory, dear friends, a place where stories breathe, where faith becomes real, and where we meet Orthodox Christians who are quietly carrying the light of Christ into the corners of the world that many of us never think about. Today's guest is someone I've admired from afar for a long time, not because he stands on big stages or speaks with a loud voice, but because he serves with a quiet, faithful, unwavering voice. His name is Tigran Khachikyan, a deaf Armenian American Orthodox deacon, husband, father, barber, and the creator behind Faith and Life in Science, a growing YouTube ministry dedicated entirely to one mission, making Orthodox Christianity accessible in Armenian Sign Language. God wanted to use not only his voice, but his silence, not only his hands, but his heart to bring the gospel to people who, for centuries, were often left without a spiritual language they could fully understand. He's a bridge builder between worlds, between languages, between cultures, and his ministry has become a home for those who have long hungered to see the Orthodox faith signed, not just spoken. Today we will discuss Tigran's call to evangelize and translate faith into a language where movement becomes theology while living a grounded life of a barber and a family man. Before we start, friends, I would like to remind you that this video is a collaboration between the Western Diocese of the Armenian Apostolic Church and myself. We would really appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel, Olasona, as well as the channel of the Western Diocese. You can find all the links in the description to this video. And now, friends, I'm so happy to welcome Tigran Khachikyan. Tigran, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's honestly an honor. I'm humbled, and this setup is amazing. So thank you for having me.
Of course. Tigran, I just wanted to first express my admiration towards what you're doing. Every time I come to this cathedral, I see you standing before the altar and with such reverence and devotion translating the liturgy to American Sign Language, from Armenian to American Sign Language. It means so much to our community. Thank you so much for doing that. Could you walk us through your years in Armenia as you were growing up, to moving to the US, and then discovering this call for Orthodox ministry?
Yes. I was born in Armenia. Until I was around 12, I moved here to America. 2 weeks before, there was an attack. So I do remember that day. So my grandfather, he would always take me to church for so long, for as long as I could remember. I would grow up going. We would do him and I, we would go. We would also pass out meat and bread. And growing up, I didn't quite understand. But once I came here to America and, seeing the church and that there wasn't really anything that was the same as my old church, what I was used to, with the incense, the way it smelled, that wasn't here. And so I stopped going to the nearby churches until about 2025. My uncle came here from Armenia, and he learned about this church here in Burbank. And I was like, oh, okay. So I came here. I didn't know there wasn't anything set up yet for the diocese. There was just an office and parking lot. The church wasn't established just yet. So with no church here, I said, is this the place? And like, no. No, I don't think that we're welcomed in here. But then as time goes on, it wasn't until I was in high school. I had one interpreter who was a Jehovah's Witness. They were like, hey, did you know that church is fake? And I go, wait, what? Church is fake? What do you mean? So it made me start to think. And, I love history. So I started doing some research, studying, did my own insightful work, and was like, wow. So the church has been set up for how long? The Spirit, how does the Spirit work? Wow, this is all very interesting. I started getting excited. So I decided, I'm going to join some other deaf people. There was a Protestant church and there was a group there. So I incorporated myself. But it didn't really feel like it was part of my old church, what I'm used to, my tradition. We didn't do the signs of the cross. We didn't say amen. There was a little bit of a disconnect there. So I went ahead and decided to read the Bible myself. And, I understood it on my own, but my uncle was like, you're reading the Bible, right? And I said, yeah. And he goes, no, not any Bible. This one is a Protestant Bible. Okay, so I go home and I start thinking, Lord, which church is right for me? Should I do Jehovah's Witness? Someone told me it's fake. Should I go to Protestant? Someone's saying it's not good. And eventually later, 2007, 2008, around that time, don't quite remember the year, but it was Palm Sunday. And my sister and I, we went to church. My sister, she knows signs, so she interprets for me a little bit. So the both of us went together. The deacon at that time, there was a priest, but this was also a deacon, and he came up to me asking if I was interested in doing services at the altar. And I said, but I'm deaf. How am I going to help service the altar? I said, okay, sure. Still wondering and curious how I would do it. But a week later, I met him to speak with the Archbishop. So he's blessing everyone. He's blessing the altar. I'm watching and I'm going, oh, okay, I should ask the Lord. I had asked him before, and maybe this was my calling. So I rolled up my sleeves, decided to dive right in, start studying the church, and I was asking advice. What should I do? What's the next thing I should do? Gave me a list. Here are the goals. I want to make sure that we can incorporate deaf people into their church. We want to invite them. We want to make sure to have something set up so that they feel welcomed and not feel like they're the only one. So that's what I'm doing here. Thank God.
So you did all of that right at the beginning of your service as a deacon?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Well, it really started not as a deacon, but at that time. So I was a tapir. So I was starting level. So I felt like, I really liked that responsibility, but a deacon's responsibility is definitely a lot more. And I felt like I was called to it. So I started setting up Bible study from certain time frame. Please come. I started doing liturgy, studying with groups and trying to sign and figure out how we would communicate. It was a bit of a struggle. And as time went on, it was like, I can't imagine, church and the Bible without sign and without being here.
Could you tell us more about the actual translation, how it happens of the Holy Scripture and right now we'll talk about Holy Scripture and the prayers. Later we'll talk about the liturgy. But how does technically that work? Because even us, we have American Standard Version translation, we have New King James Version or King James Version of the Bible, and we have so many more. And up and coming. Could you tell us about specifics of the translation here?
Yeah. So it's like home English, and it's like 1,000 different terms to translate. But for one word, you have to think about the concept of it. So thinking about how they might use the word, you can read it and go, oh, okay, I understand it. But in depth, what does it actually mean? Well, here's the word for the King James Version. And you're trying to find the closest translation, thinking about at that time, in those years, what they meant by it. So in that word, how old is that word? Okay, and comparing for the Bible and comparing with Armenian culture, looking back and going, oh, okay, so that word has a different meaning back then than it does now currently in English, which means that the English meaning doesn't quite correlate. And so I feel like I should trust, which one should I trust, the older or the newer? So I kind of imagine it in my head. How would I sign this word? This word isn't really this word. So when signing it and switching it to ASL, for example, it'd be like the right to make, you would show the direction is on the right side, but what they mean is the right thing. So you have to figure out how are you going to sign this clearly so that word really is that word and no one's getting confused. And so that I've been working on it. And so finally someone can say, I can understand it. So that is something I'm developing. Hopefully we're getting better at it.
And how long did it take you to start really understanding the Holy Scripture and being able to interpret it to others?
Yeah. That too. I remember one of my family members, they had come to me, they had the Bible, handed it to me and said, here you go, this is Jehovah's Witness Bible. But I was like, oh, okay, at the time I'll go ahead and read it anyway. It's Jehovah's Witness or it's Protestant. It doesn't quite matter to me. I will still read it. But it took me about a year. Yeah, about a year, a little more. Finally finish it and read it, and I could feel it in my heart and I can empathize like, wow, I understand this. And, going through the pages, okay. But one night, I remember we were playing basketball. It was basketball practice, and my friend and I were talking about God, and you're going, oh yeah, but he thought nothing of it. Ha, God this. And I said, no, you should really take it seriously. It's a decision. So I went back home, prayed on it, and I apologized. Sorry for everything about my friend, reading the Bible, that we're all sinners. And so I'm reading some more. And at that moment, I had a transitional moment. I felt like the Spirit had entered me. And the next day, 2-3 days later, my friend, he's like, hey, what's wrong? You're not using bad words. You're not cursing. Like, oh, I went back home and I'm finished with it. I'm done with that. And I think that was 17 years old. Yeah, 19. All right, I'm good. I changed. And then later on, I joined here, the church, the Oriental Orthodox Church. And so I've been able to grow and develop and understand, and that was my goal, was spirituality. I asked, and this was the answer. It's not like I could never understand now.
How does being deaf shape your relationship with God? Were you ever feeling resentful towards him?
Yeah, that's a kind of funny, like the way you say it, like resentful. I asked my wife, like, am I angry? Do I resent God? And my wife's like, no, never. I'm like, right? That's interesting. Because I'm trying to remember, and no, I don't remember an exact time. I have had regrets, or I have felt, sad for a moment, but angry towards God? No. Angry towards the devil, causing so many problems. For example, when I changed my life, so I was like 18, 19, but I was alone, a deaf person, and same as you're here, you're around me, you're all hearing, so you're talking, but some of them are behind me and they're talking to me from behind, and I'm deaf and they don't know, and here I am at church, we're all reading the Bible together, but it was a challenge for me. How am I going to communicate and clarify? And, I felt, really sad and feeling like a failure and feeling like the devil was trying to, get at me and grabbed me. But I felt at that moment that sadness, and I was like, God, why do I feel like this? And I noticed that I needed to change my life and serve the church. But later on, when I had made some new friends, I had made a new friend. They were Protestant before, but as we were talking, we were going back and forth, and we had an instant connection. I was like, "You were Protestant before?" He's like, "Yeah." He goes, "But you're not thinking, now you're thinking like Orthodox?" Yeah, why not? It's been a good match. And so we started talking about it, and those minutes increased, and there was a lot more time that we were talking, and we increased each other's knowledge in each other's religion. And I thanked God for sending him, even though he was Protestant, him and I talking about it, he was able to join this church, and deciding to see which religion would be the best for him and service him the best. And so him and I, we're still friends. We still talk. I just could not imagine, life without him now. Maybe he wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. It's hard to imagine, like me being alone. At that time, it was a challenge, and I had a friend.
Tigran, I wanted to ask you about how it is to raise kids in between the deaf and hearing worlds, and also how to raise them in faith. I really would like to know that. How do you do that?
Yeah. So I'm a father myself, so I have... tomorrow would be 40 days. 40 days old. Yeah, tomorrow will be 40 days old with my newborn. Doing the math.
Is a baby girl or baby boy?
Well, it's my firstborn. It was a girl. She's 5 now. My secondborn is a boy. And that's most recent.
Wow.
My firstborn, my daughter, she's 5 now, but she loves church. She loves the cross. She kisses it all the time. She's constantly grabbing it. She'll look at me in my life. So in not me as a preachy person, but she just looks at me as my activities. What am I doing? She likes to copy what I'm doing when it comes to liturgy. She's there. She's there every Sunday. For the Holy Scripture, when we do the bell and the incense, we do that ceremony here. We go to another church. We went to another church and they didn't have any bells, and so my daughter was like, "Wait, Dad, why don't I hear anything? Where is the sound? We need this." And she was a 5-year-old girl telling me. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So now with my secondborn, his name is Samuel. Samuel, meaning God's ears. So I think that's an interesting little connotation, God's ears. And my daughter, her name, it's also another way of saying wise or wisdom. So a lot of people will say, "Oh, it's so hard to discipline, to incorporate your children into church." But honestly, I haven't seen any problems. I take my kids to church. I teach them. I introduce them to other kids. If there's any frustrations, go ahead. You can step away for a second. I'm not going to force it. I'm going to have an open conversation. They don't say, "I hate church." They say they love it. They love Jesus and they're thankful. And that is awesome.
My experience is very similar. I actually noticed that kids just, whatever you do, kids love doing that. And when I stand in front of my prayer corner, they like to copy me. When I say prayers, we're learning, integrating little prayers here and there throughout the day. And I just noticed the exact expression that I have when I'm reading the prayer or I'm reciting the prayer. They just copy everything up to the gestures, and they're so happy doing that. And the same when they come to church. They're having a little hard time of just sitting down at church, especially my toddler boys. But my daughter is much better at it right now. She's 4. close to the age of your daughter. So she's doing very, very well right now at church. She still gets tired at the end because our liturgy is long, but she's learning very fast, and she's very eager to learn more about Jesus. She loves her little Bible that I read her every night. So were there some moments where you felt like, kids are actually understanding what I'm talking about God or about spirituality? Were there moments like that?
Yes. So my daughter, my wife and I, when we were trying to have our baby, it was, a long time. We were struggling. And my daughter, she said, Jesus, please give us a baby. Give it to my dad and my mom. And I didn't tell her to say that. But my wife was like, what is she doing? I don't know. Let her pray. I'm like, wow, okay. But also, when you were saying you and your praying corner, that is such an important aspect. A lot of people don't have a praying corner. And I feel like, I'm not saying you have to, it's not required, but when you have that praying corner, it's a space for you where you're going to pray and your daughter or your son is able to watch you in your activity, and they're able to observe and you influence them and inspire them.
Yeah.
My daughter, there's just so many things that I can't remember at this moment. But she herself, she's very independent. She will walk right up to the cross. She will kneel on her own. She will even get hands on the ground and in full force. Oh. And I'm not forcing her. I'm not telling her go do it. She's just seeing what I'm doing, and she's copying that. And that's so important. And it reflects you, how well you are as a parent, that your children are seeing this. And it's a way of preaching. Deaf people, we sign it as preaching both ways, like preaching towards one person versus preaching towards each other. It's not gonna be conflicting. It's back and forth. You don't want to do one-sided.
So through intercession of your daughter, through her prayers, you received the good news of having another baby. That's so beautiful, Tigran. That's so beautiful. Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
You will have to update, give me an update of how the transition of the baby towards church life is going on.
Right. Yeah. A lot of people are looking forward to that. Yeah. Oh, dad and son, deacon and altar boy. We'll see what happens. Take it easy. Yes. Let him decide. It'll be through God's will. We'll see what happens.
Wonderful. Well, he can still be an altar boy. He doesn't have to become a deacon, but he can still be an altar boy, right? God willing.
Yeah,
God willing.
Maybe. Yes. Or priest, huh? We'll see.
God willing. Okay, so I would really like to speak about the nuances of the liturgy. As other Oriental Orthodox, we have a very poetic, beautiful language of the liturgy. And there's so much symbolism behind it. I wanted to speak about translating Armenian Grapar, classical Armenian, into American Sign Language, doing it in parallel with the liturgy that is going on, and also keeping that reverence of the liturgy. How does that all work out for you?
I wouldn't say it's easy, but with the guidance of God, I do manage. So hearing people, they use their voice and they use flexation, pitch in that way. But for deaf people, we don't have that. We're visual, non-verbal. So we're going to use our face. Like holy, for example, holy. It's going to be a challenge because it's going to be so slow.
Okay.
So
when the choir is singing holy, holy, right? That's what you mean? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I understand.
Yes,
yeah. It is. Yeah. How do you translate that?
Yeah, it's difficult to sign that. It's very slow, just like that. And you're like a turtle, at the speed of a turtle. And everyone's just kind of going, yeah, next. But for a hearing person, it's just sound. So you're going, oh. But for a deaf person, you got to sign it slow so that they know that the note is long. And so for me, what I decided to do was change it so that one word, holy, I'll just say it holy and then say 3 times again. So we'll say, okay, holy, holy, holy.
Okay.
But if it's just the one letter, 1, 2, 3 times, it's going to take forever for like a hearing person. Sorry. It's going to take too long. It's just easier to translate it so that it can match sign better. Because with the choir, they take too long. But with sign, it's so much faster. So yeah, that would be one thing with the choir. Also with the words and terminology. At the end of the sermon, when we are saying Our Father, that everything's great. And then afterwards, there's also the liturgy. And we say the Our Father really fast in comparison to in the middle of Mass. At the end of it, we say it really fast. There's a differences in speed, but you can also see the difference in the facial expressions and body language. You'll see how it matches the pace and tone. Or for like example, angel. We'll sign angel and we can kind of maybe make it up and say like the angels are flying over here, and everyone is worshiping underneath. But you don't want to just say like angel. No, you want to add a little bit more depth into where they are. What does it look like? There's the Lord. You kind of match it with the timing.
That looks complicated. It's probably complicated. And there's a lot of work behind it. Even to say, one hymn, you have to think about it in advance. What about the emotion behind? So there are hymns that are, they're repentant hymns. They should evoke repentance, like Tervo Hormia, for instance, Lord have mercy. Or the hymns that we sing after the communion are uplifting hymns, the hymns of thanksgiving. So how do you communicate those emotions?
That's a good question. So before the Eucharist, before we ingest the Eucharist, first, we do confession. We ask, Lord, have mercy. We try and stay humble in our energy. We are not going to be too eager. Then we have to show that we have intentions. We are looking within. Once you do receive the Eucharist, that is a moment of joy, happiness. Your heart has been filled. You are satisfied. There are stages, and with that, it's important to show it with your face. If there is no facial expressions, you don't know which stage you're in. Are you happy? Are you sad?
Well, most of the parishioners just have one expression in some of the churches for before liturgy, during and after. It's just very, very serious.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something I've noticed that like deaf people, they'll be like, do they not want us here? You're like, no. You have to remember that that's just how they express their emotion. Hearing people is so easy to just hear it through their voice, and you know what they want or how they feel. But not when it comes to deaf. If it's a flat face, whoa, what's wrong with me? Do they not want me here? And you start to feel unwelcomed, and you go, no, it's just a little bit of a difference. You're more facially expressive than them.
As an Armenian deacon serving during the Divine Liturgy, what are your daily responsibilities?
So, using the censer, helping or assisting the priest with their garments, with the bread, the wine, preparation. The censer. Oh, you all know that I'm deaf, profoundly deaf. So I'll do the liturgy. During the liturgy, I'll do the censer, and the priest will make the blessing. Bless all blessings with you. And at that moment, I will also be doing the censor, and I'll think to myself, you're profoundly deaf, but how is it that you have the timing perfectly? And I said, well, I use my eyes. I can see when the priest does the sign of the cross. At that time, he's also reaching for the blood and the body. And at that moment, that's when I'm ready. Mm-hmm. At the exact moment he puts his hands up to cover and bless, that's when I do it. Everything's going on at the same time, but I see it. I can't hear it, but I see it all. And that helps me, those visual cues, to make sure everything goes well. But you act like you're not deaf. You act like you're hearing. I'm profoundly deaf. I don't know. I just do it. But during the liturgy, I'm looking, but I'm also thinking. I'm bowing. I'm kneeling. I'm doing everything visually possible.
That is so amazing, because you are right. There's certain rhythm to everything that is happening in the liturgy. No matter how slow or fast the choir is singing, this rhythm is still uninterrupted throughout the whole liturgy. And it's amazing that you can feel it and act at the right moment in the right place. Yeah, that's fantastic. I noticed that too. I noticed how fast you just translate the liturgy to the sign language. It's fascinating to me to watch. And I noticed also how the community have grown since a few years back, I think, when I first saw you and at the altar or beside the altar. What do you think it matters that there's someone who is interpreting the liturgy to them in that while the liturgy is still going on? Mm-hmm.
Yes. Right now, we don't really quite have a formal interpreter who is professional, but we do have the lexicon team. So they sometimes will show up and be able to interpret. But in general, for the general public, I will interpret it. I'm not as skilled as an interpreter, but definitely willing to, during the preaching, during the sermon, I do have somebody who will be signing simultaneously. But normally, like here for Armenian Deaf, there's about 100. There's about 100 people. It has gotten bigger, and I do, ask some of them to come, please show up, but about 40 of them will. Regularly, 10. Since the 7 years since I've started this organization, some people will think, oh, it's boring, or the priest or the bishop, they're not there, so they feel like, what's the point? I shouldn't be there. But I still say, like, no, it's really important. We can still come, we can still discuss. They care about you. I want to see you too. So that can be somewhat of an issue, struggling to get some people to come. It's sometimes complex, I think.
But the community is growing. That's the most important thing. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I noticed that, yeah.
Like for Bible study? Oh, yeah. Still strong. Good numbers. Just this Sunday, we had a total of, on Zoom, and in person, a total of 20.
Yeah. But I wanted also to ask you about not only liturgical worship as a deacon, but you started a ministry on YouTube as well, and on other social media platforms. So it's Life and Faith in Signs, right? Could you tell me more about it, and why did you decide there's a need for that? And what was that exact moment when you heard Christ calling to do that?
I remember I had started long ago. And this was back when I was looking at all the different churches, the Jehovah Witness, Jewish church, Protestant. But in that moment, I had decided I was going to set something up that would be Orthodox teaching, that would be a YouTube channel that anyone, could access, a platform that would be maybe international. But I didn't see anything for myself that I was searching for. I saw Protestant. I saw Orthodox. So I just figured I would have to do it myself. Roll up my sleeves. I'm here, so I can do it. I can do the theological discussions. Let's celebrate together.
Yeah.
January 6th, we had a celebration. I go, what for? So I explain it in Armenian, in traditional sign, just explaining, here we are. This is what we're doing. This is why. And just making more access for deaf. So if anyone was ever curious, what is Orthodox? What do you do in your church? Well, come on over and I'll explain it to you. But also, me as a person, as a deacon, as a father, a barber, in faith, they can see me that I'm a real person and these are my goals that I want them to come.
Wow. You have worked with other deacons from Oriental Orthodox churches and Eastern Orthodox churches. What are some major differences in the way their communities treat deaf community? And did you see them being more open to bringing new programs that would help deaf community? And what are some of the programs that you wish we had, or maybe where the diocese is working on that?
Really? Here with the West Diocese, it's the most open-minded. They think out of the box. They're definitely considering on open access, which is why I'm appreciative. This is why I'm here. For example, this church has an elevator. Or if you need to go restroom, they have a railing right next to the toilet if you need it. But not really any deaf here. So we have to make it so that this is a place for them to come so that they can show up and, we can continue to come here. This is a place for me. This isn't just for anyone. You're trying to make it so that they do come. Come, bring your friends. I told you, come. This is a place to be. Let me show you. Here, you do matter. So they kind of go, okay, how can you help me? So we're able to have that conversation. And it could be me. It can be me in a conversation with 2 or 3 other people. And I don't want them to feel like I'm just, are you here? Okay. No, I will specifically be like, I see you. Thank you for coming. And I'm going to work on it with each person.
What are the things that you want every bishop and every priest to know about the deaf community and how to serve it?
It's not required, but it would be nice if, when we're saying bless you, just a very simple God bless you, that's how you would sign it. God absolve you. Hello, how can I help you? Just a few little phrases that could be signed that a deaf person would go, wow, you actually learned. You care about us. That's where I'm trying, not this year, but 2 to 3 years ago, I had made some videos for the deacons, for the priests. I would sign it. Jesus died. Jesus has risen. This is how you sign priests. So it was a small little video dictionary of terminology that they could use. Very simple sign, simple phrases, and I know that would be a huge impact. It would be very powerful.
Can you tell me how to say Christ is risen in sign language?
So remember the sentence. Here's the sentence in English, because ASL is different than English. So first, you would say Jesus died, risen. So Jesus died and has risen.
So could you show die again? Die. And before that, you showed something else. The very
Jesus.
first. So how to say Jesus? 3. Okay.
So middle finger into your palm.
Okay.
Died and then has risen.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful. I love it.
Or you would say Jesus' birth. Jesus was born. Jesus Birth, born.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Wow. And why is Jesus like this? Is that, how did it historically come to be like that?
Well, don't quite know, but there was a deaf school that was established, I think it was 1,500 years ago in Spain. They were also, I believe the French were the first. Yeah, French was the first to establish a school that became a broader educational system. But the private school was in Spain. So French was public while the private school was in Spain. And they were monks. And they were teaching children sign. So maybe that was the beginning of Jesus like this. But since then, all over the world, we all sign it as Jesus. Russian sign, Armenian sign, we're all going to sign it just the same. In the whole world, that one sign is the same. In other parts of the country, in other parts of the world, they will have different languages, but that's the one where that's unison. Because, we're also pointing to the palm for the stigmata. So, for example...
okay, now it makes sense to me, of course. It's a stigmata, yeah. It's the wounds of Jesus that you're pointing out.
Yes.
Okay, now it makes sense, yeah. I wanted to speak to you about Lexicon Team. Could you talk a little bit about that organization and what's your role in there? You're a co-founder of it, right?
Yes. I'm not a co-founder, but I do lead.
Co-leader. Sorry. So you're a co-leader there, right? Yes.
Yes, co-leader. So I do lead the Lexicon Team. We all of us are Eastern Orthodox. I'm the only one that's Oriental Orthodox. But, God made it happen. He graced us with this group. We're all working together as a team, and we're using sign. But the lexicon, it means to create. So in ASL, we are creating liturgy.
The same word baptism in the Protestant history, right? It means one thing, right? And for apostolic churches who accept it as a mystery, it means something different. So even that has to be reflected in a sign language. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So how do you go about those nuances? You said it took you several weeks to come up with the right answers, right? Wow, that's a lot, actually. Yeah.
Yes, because I don't want to just make it up. Oh, this is the sign. Let's all make it up. For example, finally we had all agreed on a sign for liturgy. So the reason behind making it this way is we tend, and over in Armenia, we sign
Patarak.
patrog.
Patarak.
So with the P, instead we switch it to an H. But then here we didn't like it because it's not really ASL, so we switched it to like music and with the F hand shape. And we explain, well, the reason for it is this background, and we have to explain liturgy. You see how I'm holding my fingers? Mm-hmm. This is the number for 8. So infinity, the sign for infinity, you also have your hand in this similar shape. So infinity and 8, and then worship and music and complete. We want to make it well-rounded, so liturgy, because then that in itself is going to be about worship. And so that's kind of how it happened. We were like, we agreed, this is the sign for liturgy.
So all those signs just to say liturgy, to describe, you're basically describing the liturgy by words, which is very similar to the word patarak that you mentioned, right? Because patarak is sacrifice, right? So it describes what is happening during the liturgy. It's not just, an abstract word. It's a very concrete word of the worship that we have. That's very interesting. I didn't know that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Also, Jesus had risen on the 8th day. So it's all on connected.
Wait, he wasn't risen on the 8th day.
8th day. He's saying 8th day when he was risen. Because it's the Sabbath.
Oh, you mean, of course, you're right. So he rises after the Sabbath, which is the 8th day, but now it becomes the 7th day. Sorry, just to clarify. Yeah.
For the Orthodox Church, we observe it as 8 days completely.
Yeah.
So that's why we do the hand shape 8.
Oh, okay. So that's also in the meaning of just one word that you describe as liturgy. Wow. How about sacraments? How do you describe them and how do you explain them? That's another conversation.
We still have not discussed that one yet. Some people are saying sacraments, the letter S, but with the sign of a cross in front of us. We are still discussing it, and I'm praying that we will agree and that will happen soon.
Oh, wow. Working with Eastern Orthodox, did you guys have any debates? Did you have opportunity to? No? Okay.
No.
I mean, yeah.
It's a funny story. When I had arrived in Boston, there were 2 priests who knew sign. One of the priests I hadn't met yet, but I had gone to Boston to meet. So I said, hi, hello, my name is, and I introduced myself. This is my sign name. I'm a deacon. He says, oh, okay, well, I'm William. I'm a priest. So we're doing the, shake hands, regular gesture. So I go, oh, well, what is your church doing? What do you do? Well, we're Armenian. Immediately his face changed. Armenian. Okay. What? Okay, that's fine. That's not really important for me. So I decided to continue on. So 3 days go on. We're sitting down. We're discussing. There's so much in depth. And then one of our friends leaves. He comes up to me, shakes my hand, thank you. It was really nice to meet you. But we had, a connection. But knowing the history behind the reason why he was feeling Orthodox, that was the reason why he looked at me that way and thought about it. But it was the history. Yeah. But once he got to know me, he's like, no, I didn't mean to. No, it's totally fine. We're all spiritual. We're all here talking about unity. It's a complete transformation of over 20 words in 3 days. So we still worked well as a team. So it tends to be 3 to 4 people. And wow. So far, we've been working on Zoom as well, having meetings, trying to decide on signs, doing beta testing kind of. And then we meet again in person, reconvene, approve, disapprove a sign, and
wow,
continue.
You guys are making history. That's amazing. No one has done this before.
Oh, thank God.
No one has done this before, you.
No, this would be the first. Since I started in May.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm surprised no one has started it before. It's just seems like such a natural thing to do when you're, especially for Orthodox Christians. But yeah, I'm glad that someone is doing it finally. Yeah.
Well, it's not... Oh, it was in 2012. So that's how far back, I had met the Eastern Orthodox priests. But, since then, we've had our YouTube channel. We've both agreed on a lot of terms. So he's over in Maryland. Sometimes we meet over there. We discuss. But I realized him being Eastern Orthodox, or Eastern Oriental, and me being Oriental Orthodox. But we started. We planted the seed. We planted the seed, we buried it, we know that it's possible. And from there, it just kind of grew from 20 all the way to 2025. Yeah, so it's been 13 years so far. We finally established and created a group. The bishop approved over in Texas. So all of the USA, everyone reconvened there. that was when we had our chance to discuss and show their gestures. And then we had a second group where we picked the lexicon team. So we had a small group, and from there we were able to pick the lexicon team, and we were able to progress from there. For example, here's this background. This is background. You can see it. You can see something, but behind it, the background, it's still kind of a mystery. It's blurry. So you were looking at it as if Jesus were standing on the mountain. And he reveals himself with the grace of God, his beaming light.
Is it transfiguration you're describing?
Transfiguration.
Yes, okay. Yeah.
So you'll see something, and it's a mystery, and so everyone's like, look, it's God. This is God. He's human. But we don't really have a sign for mystery. You can sign it like this, but not really. We would prefer it to be switched and sign it this way, because we don't want it to be confused with mystery, that other meaning. We're trying to show you that this is a different perspective of God, of Jesus as a human. So we're trying to show the meaning and how we're putting that together. We have the three, we will break it up into pieces, and we work on each component separately.
How do you make sure that interpretation is in accordance to the teaching of the fathers of our church, is true Orthodox?
So we tend to be visual. So it's not going to be word for word. So there's a lot of different ways to sign it. Our Father in heaven. So that's gonna be one basic way. But when it comes to Orthodox sign, we'll do it a little bit simpler. We'll just say Father, and we use our hand as like overarching. He is here. His name is glorious. He reigns. He comes and he reigns. On earth, he wants to watch and see us change to be same as the heaven. So it's not like he's giving us. He does give us our daily bread consistently. We may do wrong. We may sin, but we can look up to God and we can ask for forgiveness and remember that we are like God in his image. You may look at God and somebody will be bothering you. That will be the devil. Get him out of here. So you're visually showing.
Interesting. So it's a story you're telling rather than... So it's a prayer, but it's also a story that you're telling while praying.
It is still the prayer.
Yeah, absolutely. But you're also opening it up for people, like kind of... going deeper into the meaning of that prayer, right? Right as you are saying it, which is, so interesting.
You're right.
All right.
And that's why I always tell people, deaf people, it's like, you got to take advantage of this. We are more visual. We capable of understanding it better than hearing population. And I don't understand. I don't mind showing it to you again and again. This is the answer. It is right here. We're signing it.
That's pretty profound, I must say. Wow. I see that you have a tattoo from the Holy Land. I would love to talk about that. So you've been to the Holy Land in 2022. 22. Okay. Tell me more about that trip, please.
Yeah, I loved that trip. Just looking back at it. Really, that moment, it was, during COVID time, things were chaotic. Mm-hmm. Internally, I felt spiritually down, and I felt like I needed to do something. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to Jerusalem. That's on my bucket list. Let's check it off. So my friend and I asked them, do you want to come with me? Yes, let's do it. We can do it. So a group of men, we all went together. I think it was three of us. And then It was a total of 6 of us, because it was 3 of us and 2 of them brought their sons. And it took us the whole week. We stayed there the week. Because it was Holy Week. Because here we had just finished Easter. Oh. So Easter had just finished here. We flew over there for Holy Week. So yeah, we were able to join in the festivities.
Yeah, because calendars are different. Yeah, calendars. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So we were able to see the Holy Fire, and there were so many people. And yeah, so happy to participate, because we had a hotel. We stayed in a hotel. But one of us, we knew a priest, so we contacted the priest, told them that we had made it safely and that we wanted to visit the fire. And he said, okay, but just to let you know, it's not going to be easy. So they gave me like a VIP pass, so like a lanyard, so I could go through the crowd. So thank you very much. Put that on. I think it was 5 of them, because there was a group of us, and I had my clothes on, but with my badge. So gave it to us. We arrived to the hotel, and I remember someone said, wait a minute. How did you get that badge? How did you get 5 of them? Where did you get it? I don't know. Honestly, it's not a big deal. But people were looking at us going, oh my gosh, that is worth so much money. How did you get it? That's like millions of dollars. I don't know. I just had a contact. Can I take a picture of it? I'm like, sure. So somebody wanted to take a picture of me wearing it. Sure. So I posed. But they said it was really hard to get one of them, that it was almost impossible. And I just thanked God that I was able to witness the fire and was able to feel that inspiration. And in the back of my head, I remember that person telling me that it's almost impossible. And I got that tattoo right here on my wrist to remember it, you know. And in the future, maybe I'll come back to that area. And I'm remembering also that Jesus might return there as well.
Yeah. We also had an interesting experience on the Holy Land. We were traveling with the Armenian Orthodox group, all friends from church. And we would always get VIP places, like always get VIP treatment wherever we went, because Armenians get like some privileges on the Holy Land, right?
You're
like
right.
we would go to even Palestine, to Bethlehem. And we would go to the actual place where Jesus was born. And there was a long procession. There was a long line of people who wanted to come and worship, but they would stop the line until Armenians come and have a liturgy there. And then they would continue the line. So it was just a, very honorable place to be. They would stop everything that was going on just for us to have a liturgy wherever we went. It meant a lot to me as a young Christian who was just, making her first steps in faith. And did you notice also some interesting, this honor and respect that people were showing to Armenians there?
Yes. Yeah, when I said I'm Armenian, oh my gosh, come over here, brother. Oh, hug me. But if someone else would be like, oh, I'm American. Oh, here you go, shake your hand. But something about being Armenian is special. I don't want to get a bit hype about it, but I did notice something, a little difference. Maybe something about like they wanted to party.
And those moments stay with you forever.
You've experienced the Holy Fire?
No, because we went there on the Pentecost first time, and the second time on the Assumption.
Pentecost.
And then the Assumption of the Lord. But not because they told us that it's going to be too crazy on the Holy Resurrection week.
Yes, definitely.
So we just... Yeah, we came later.
Actually, yeah, a little bit of my hair caught on fire. Literally. I was talking to somebody and turned my head, and I caught a little bit of flame. I was happy. I still did the sign of the cross, but I felt a little bad about that. But it was just so crowded.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you this question. If there are young people out there who feel unheard and unseen in today's modern, setting of the church, or just generally in Orthodox churches, what would you say to them? How would you help them?
From what I've seen, unfortunately, some parents, they're embarrassed that they have a son or a daughter who is deaf, and they don't want to show them, so they keep them at home. It's a child with a disability, and deafness would be considered a disability, and so they're like, don't sign, only verbalize. And it's almost forbidden to pick up your hands, and like, you can sign here, you can talk with me, either way.
It's a thing when they are not allowed to. Oh my God, that's so sad.
Yep, it's a thing. Nope,
That's like
I know it's sad.
shutting up your own child forever. That's terrible.
It's because they think that when you're signing, it could be considered rude, or it kind of makes you look dumb. You signing actually can make you smarter. But the parents, their belief is that the ears, speaking would be far more important. If you are capable of hearing and speaking, then you are smarter. But, for example, 8 billion people are on Earth. This is just a little example. So like 90% of them are hearing. We all have the same average intelligence. I don't understand the logic behind that. But
there's no logic
behind
it,
that we're still teaching sign, that we're incorporating them and including them in everything, not pulling them out and isolating them. So that's where I would love if the parents could be more open-minded and open-hearted with their child and encourage them to join the church, and maybe they would learn a little bit of something with their child, because they would see me and I would see them. But I don't see them here. Meaning, some of them, they feel sad. I'm deaf. But no, I would never feel that. I was like, I'm deaf and I'm proud. We're deaf. It's cool. I can understand feeling depressed. But yeah, no. Why would I be sad that I'm deaf? It doesn't make sense to me.
What are the greatest lessons that you learned through your ministry, being a deacon, and then in your online ministry? What are those lessons that you can also share with others who might be struggling?
There's a lot. There's a list. Most important would be trusting Jesus. Because without Jesus, then there really isn't anything. You need to trust Jesus. You need to work with your priest. You need to try and be friendly, ask questions, send an email, write them down. Sometimes people think, I'm shy. No, don't be shy. They're going to think bad about me. They're going to have an opinion. It's literally the priest and the deacon's job to help you understand. But most importantly would be Jesus. For example, myself, I'm deaf. Well, people will go, you're deaf. That's easy. You could just focus. It's an easy to focus. You don't have to listen. There's no drama. No, that's not true. I'm deaf, yeah, but it's harder because I have no one else to talk with. There are so many people here who are hearing and who are talking, and they're all talking about God and Jesus. But I have no one, and I'm expelling all this energy, and none of this energy is coming back to me. And I'm feeling depraved. And so it's important to be able to have someone who you can sit with and face one-on-one and try and understand each other.
Okay.
For example, if we were like in a competition and we're all in stadium. So if we're in a stadium, it doesn't mean it's going to be like the same idea, but just the concept. If there's a competition and everyone is cheering, woo, and everyone's in unison cheering and standing up, and we're all in support of our one team, but then the one deaf person is just sitting there crossing their arms and just watching, all while there's all these people around them and behind them, but they have no idea. Everything is loud and you're cheering, but we can't really hear it. So that can be a hard disconnect. But you think, well, Jesus, think like Jesus. Jesus is here. Jesus is in this area. So then I can finally breathe my life. I'm comfortable. It's not an easy journey.
Interesting.
But I always got to trust Jesus first.
Can I just ask, how does confession work for a deaf person when the priest doesn't speak sign language?
Yeah, that's a big challenge. So far in like 17 years, I've been writing it down, my confessions, to the priest, handing it over. I haven't had an issue with that. But often, there's a lot of deaf people, they don't mind the writing, but they feel embarrassed about their writing skills because their English isn't as proficient as their sign will be. And so sometimes when they hand it to somebody to read, they won't quite understand. And so they feel more withdrawn from that form of communication. So I will inform the priest, a lot of deaf people, they receive the Eucharist, but for confession, what should they do? And I was like, I have an idea. Maybe we can, I can talk with them and they can tell me, dictate to me, and I can write it down and then I can give it to the priest so that we can have a little bit of a three-way of third party. And they were like, yeah, I approve of that. So I felt like, okay, hopefully they feel better with that. We have some success in that way. But it's not going to be like an automatic, like, all right, here we go. Some people, they start and they're awkward. I have to talk to you to talk to him. And, you don't have to talk to me. This is you and Jesus. Or, you don't have to share it with everyone. The point is, I understand, to confess. So, thank God they agreed to that three-way conversation so that I can help out in the middle. But where I wish the priest could sign so that it could be a direct communication, that would definitely be amazing. But I am that third party currently.
Would you say that there should be at least one priest in the diocese who knows sign language and can interpret for the rest? That would be great, right?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, before, my friend had planned to become a priest. At that time, he knew sign. So his goal of becoming a priest, I was all for it. And sign, awesome. But, things happen as years went by. He changed his mind and did not become a priest. And I was like, well, darn. But it's your decision. It's fine. God will provide. He will. But we have, outside of this church, we do have 2 priests who do sign. One, he is in Northern California, and the other one is Eastern, closer to New York. I think Pennsylvania. But I only know of those 2. But in Armenia, there are some priests who do sign, but it's Armenian sign, not American.
Okay, so that's the difference there as well. That's not easy. I mean, inviting into a very intimate space of the confession, inviting a third person, that mustn't be easy for anyone. But at the same time, I'm remembering the early church, and sometimes people would confess their sins out loud in front of the whole congregation. And it was probably not very, there was some element of shame there, I assume, but they would do it nonetheless. So, that might be helpful to know that you're not supposed to always, the priest is someone who gives you absolution, right? He reads the prayer of absolution, but then the rest can still hear your confession, doesn't make it any less of a confession.
You're right. It's funny because, a lot of deaf people, they don't feel comfortable. And the reason, I will say some, not most. I don't even want to say a few. Yeah, just some. But some people, it's easy to gossip. They love to gossip. They are confessing, they say everything, but the people around them is like, oh, did you know? And then it starts to spread like wildfire. So I understand being reserved about your confession, and for that reason, we've tried to make it so it's just one priest that you're sharing with.
Yeah.
Before, it was
Yeah.
a big number of people, the big room full of people, and the world would know. Now we have YouTube, and now we have so many different types of forms of media. Did you know? No, and it becomes hypocritical.
Yeah. It doesn't stay with one congregation for sure nowadays. Yeah, it just spreads like wildfire. Absolutely. Well, I have just 2 more questions to you. What's your favorite gospel and what's your favorite saint? Who is your favorite saint?
I can say many, many, many saints, or do just one.
Okay, let's do 3 if it's hard for you to pick one.
Okay. My favorite gospel would be Mark and John. Mm-hmm. The reason I say Mark is because there is a death story in the book of Mark.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Only one in the whole book. And for John, I do like the in-depth explanation about Jesus and God. And then for Mark, it's funny because they have a Sunday reading where it happens, where they do talk about the deaf man and his health and how his ears become open. Mm-hmm. I remember that moment. The church all looked at me and was like, "You're deaf. Why didn't you become hearing like this man?" Mm-hmm. But in that perspective, looking behind that perspective and that mystery, I can understand Jesus himself, the Messiah, not doing it for the person's health, but doing it and making it so he's like all hearing people. But it's
so he can hear the gospel, right?
To the deaf person. So he can open his ears to the gospel. Hovhan, the bishop,
Hovhan Terterian. Mm-hmm.
He's saying that this man is deaf, but who has become hearing. You are all hearing, but inside you're deaf. Mm-hmm. And I looked at that and was like, wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
And then for saints, my favorite is Mesrop
Mashtats. Mm-hmm.
I feel like I can relate because he's gone through so many changes from Greek to Armenian, and I feel like I've done transformations as well. And for me, like with sign, translating to sign, I feel like he's inspired me and helped me with this project.
Holy translators, of course, you can relate to them. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We all can relate to them for sure. Yeah.
Most of us. I feel a good little connection there. And then St. John. Yes.
Okay, so St. John Chrysostom is your other favorite saint, right? And why?
Very, very straightforward. Very blunt. I feel like I'm the same. I also have that kind of same temperament. Like, no, don't do that. Or, like, I can understand you being comfortable, but so I have the same kind of like forward approach to things. So I like him.
Can I ask you just one more little question? Is it true, I heard this many times actually, is it true that it's much harder to lie in the language of signs, in the sign language, than in, speaking English or any other language?
Okay, I understand now. Yeah, because the sign is right there, you just grab it. But yeah, we definitely don't whisper. We can't really, because you're going to see the sign. So technically that is true. If, for you, a hearing person, you're wearing headphones and we put the volume up and I say, hey, what did I say? You're not going to hear it. But other people, if I'm signing and, someone happens to also know ASL in the crowd, and they could still be like, 20 feet, 50 feet from me, they can still figure out what I'm saying. So I do have to be careful and keep that in mind if I'm going to sign something, to keep it close.
All right. Well, Tigran, it was a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming. And I wish you all the best, all the luck in the world, and God's blessing with the work you're doing. It's a true blessing for the community and for all Orthodox Christians. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank God that we were able to set this up, and the ministry as well, and for all of our connects. It was really, really awesome production.
Thank you so much for coming. Friends, if today's episode inspired you, don't forget to check out Tigran's YouTube channel, Faith and Life in Science, as well as his Instagram page. All the links are in the description to this video. And if you're new here, subscribe to my channel, Ola Sona, as well as the channel of the Western Diocese. You can find previous episodes on my YouTube channel. Thank you for spending time with us, for listening, and for being part of this little corner of faith and fellowship. Every conversation brings us a little closer to Christ and a little closer to each other. Until next time, friends. Bye.